Long before the first dynasty rose, they were already here, beneath us. Before ink was carved into bamboo, before the Yellow Emperor battled demons in the north, before the first ancestor called himself human. Deep under the soil, a race with no name made the earth their cradle. Their skin was pale like fungus, thin enough for veins to show through. Their bones were soft but hollow, perfect for navigating tight tunnels. And their eyes, huge, bulging, lidless, stared without blinking, absorbing the dark like a sponge drinks poison. Their heads were oversized, smooth and hairless, their limbs slightly bent as if molded for crawling. They had no voice box, only breathy hissing. Their language wasn't spoken but scraped, through teeth against stone, nails on bone, and tapping fingers on cavern walls. Locals in certain mountain regions still whisper of them with no name, only gestures. 2 circles made with the hands over the eyes. They never came out during the day, not because they feared humans, but because sunlight, they said, could kill them instantly. One ray would make their flesh blister, their blood boil under the skin, their bones shatter like wet porcelain. So they stayed below, and the villagers stayed above. It was a balance born of fear. But here's what no one could explain. If these creatures were too fragile to survive even a second of sunlight, who told us they ever existed? Who saw them and lived to pass the story on? Or worse, who didn't live, but left a warning behind? In the oldest scrolls I've translated, they weren't demons or myths. They were simply listed among the creatures that live where men should not. They were called Shanxiao in some regions, Yiren in others. The Shanxiao, recorded in the Classic of Mountains and Seas, were described with unusually large feet, strong legs, and crooked limbs that never saw sunlight. In other provinces, like Yunnan and Guizhou, similar beings were called Yiren, literally barbaric people, but even that word fails to capture what villagers meant. These were not tribes living in the forest. They were a people beneath it, not underground in metaphor, but in the literal soil. They were said to dwell inside mountain hollows and under riverbeds, moving through ancient tunnel systems that no human ever dared map. In dry seasons, farmers sometimes heard tapping beneath their fields. 3 times, then silence, then 3 again. Those who dug to find the cause claimed to reach nothing but hollow stone, moist air, and the sensation of being watched. One scroll preserved in a private Taoist collection in Sichuan references the folk beneath the iron rock, and describes how entire stretches of farmland would fail overnight, as if something below had drawn the life out of the soil. The people never attacked directly. They didn't scream, didn't howl. They simply didn't want to be found. But the few times contact was forced, the price was immediate. One account tells of a man named Lao Ping who dug too deep while expanding a storage cellar. His neighbors said he struck something that wasn't stone, something that pulsed. That night, the cellar flooded despite there being no water nearby. His house rotted from the inside out. His livestock began to flee at random. By the end of the week, Lao Ping himself was gone. His wife claimed she heard him whispering to the walls before he disappeared. In another tale from the Qinling Mountains, a group of miners uncovered a vast, dry cavern filled with air so cold it burned the lungs. They said the walls were scratched with marks like language, but no one could decipher it. Their torches wouldn't stay lit, and 2 men collapsed before reaching the exit. Their eyes were wide open, blood pooled in the corners, and their faces locked in what one rescuer described as pure, unexpected awe. Over time, stories like these created an unspoken rule among the rural elders. Never dig too deep, and if you hear tapping beneath your home, do not answer it. These beings didn't claim land, they didn't build cities. They existed like roots, spread wide, hidden, patient. They weren't hostile. Not then. But their existence carved a wound into the cultural memory of every village near the mountains. And as centuries passed, the stories changed. The Pale Ones didn't just hide anymore. They waited, they listened, and some say they began to climb. Over generations, something in the stories shifted. The quiet observers beneath the ground began to take shape as something darker, something no longer content to remain unseen. In the borderlands between Sichuan and Chongqing, whispers grew louder of children who vanished during the night always. The same pattern, no signs of struggle, no footprints, only a trail of fine dust leading to the edge of the forest, then stopping as if the earth itself had swallowed them. In the village of Heko, elders spoke of a cave known as the mouth that breathes, where a thin, rhythmic sound echoed from deep within, like bones scraping against stone, slow and steady, louder during the new moon. That sound became a warning. If you hear the grind, they said, they are getting close. Travelers who ignored the advice and walked alone through narrow passes were sometimes found days later, curled into fetal positions, their faces pale and twisted, mouths packed with soil, eyes stretched open as if forced to watch something unspeakable. Others were never found at all. And when entire search parties disappeared, locals began to refer to them as the Taken. Tomb keepers in ancient cemeteries told of graves dug up not for gold, but for bones, long femurs cracked and missing, as if something down there needed marrow more than treasure. In certain Buddhist temples near the Ju-Hagu Valley, monks recorded dreams shared by multiple novices at once, visions of narrow tunnels lit by bioluminescent moss, with hunched figures crawling upside down across the ceiling, eyeless yet always staring. One novice woke screaming, his fingernails filled with gravel, though he hadn't left his bed. Regional differences only deepened the mystery. In the east, the pale ones were believed to be spirits, the lost remnants of a drowned race that dug down to escape a flood and forgot the sky. In the south, they were said to be proto-humans, an early branch of life that never reached the surface, driven underground by something ancient, something that ruled the skies before the world had names. But all variations agree on one thing. They hate light and they hate being seen. It's not fear, it's disgust. As if sunlight reveals something shameful, something they were never meant to become. And now, in some of the older, quieter towns, the grinding sound is heard again. Not loud, not close, but there. 3 slow rasps, then nothing. 3 again, then silence. As if counting, as if measuring the distance left to climb. And maybe we've had it backward all along. Maybe they didn't come after us. Maybe they weren't a mistake. Maybe we are. Across the world, stories of hidden peoples have surfaced like roots breaking through concrete, rare, scattered, but always eerily familiar. In North America, legends of the moon-eyed people describe a race with pale skin and massive light-sensitive eyes who only emerged at night. They were said to live underground and were eventually driven out by invading tribes. In global esoteric circles, the myth of Agartha persists, a vast hollow world beneath our own, ruled by an ancient civilization, more advanced than anything on the surface. But while those tales carry the scent of mystery and wonder, China's version has no warmth, no hidden utopia beneath the ground. Only cold earth, silence, and eyes that never blink. The beings in Chinese lore are not lost kings or peaceful sages. They are not messengers. They are watchers, and they do not want to be found. The contrast says more than it seems. Where other cultures romanticize the underworld, painting it as a place of secrets and spiritual refuge, the Chinese myth carves it into a warning. Stay close to the soil, but never look too deep. This theme runs through ancient texts and modern beliefs alike. The fear of what lies beneath, of what listens when we dig, of what remembers us even when we forget it. Unlike the noble serpents or divine dragons that ascend from lakes or mountains, these creatures do not rise to teach or guide. They rise when disturbed. And perhaps most haunting of all, they rise because they remember a time before us. A time when they were the only ones who walked. Maybe that's why this version exists. to protect the veil between what is seen and what must stay buried. And yet, there is one part of the myth that is rarely spoken, one detail so specific and so consistent across distant provinces that even the most skeptical villagers refuse to dismiss it. It's the part that even the elders refuse to say aloud. The reason we know they existed, the reason their story keeps coming back, the thing that links all the versions together like threads pulled too tight. And once you know it, you can't unhear it. You can't unknow it. Because if it's true, they're not gone. In a remote settlement near the Wuming Mountains, where the soil stays damp even in dry seasons, and the trees bend unnaturally toward the ground, a woman named Lian gave birth to a child who defied every expectation. He was silent for 3 days after birth. No crying, no movement, no breath that could fog a mirror, but he was alive. His skin was nearly translucent, a soft gray blue with faint purplish veins. His eyes were impossibly large, round, and glossy black, with no visible whites, and they didn't move. Not side to side, not to blink. They simply stared, unblinking, as if remembering something older than the room around him. Every time light entered the hut, even from a crack in the roof, his skin erupted in blisters, and he hissed in pain. At night, though, he became restless. He would rock gently back and forth, not wailing like other newborns, but releasing low, rhythmic hums that echoed like distant wind through a tunnel. The local doctor called it a defect. The elders called it a curse. But the monks from the temple across the ridge came without being summoned. They said they had seen the signs in dreams. Cracked stones, broken roots, a heartbeat beneath the mountain. When they laid eyes on the child, they didn't cry. They didn't speak. One of them simply placed a hand on the mother's shoulder and whispered, "The earth is trying to remember." For 5 days, the child never left the hut. The mother refused to let anyone else hold him. Then, on the 6th night, during a rainless storm of thunder and ground tremors, she woke to find her arms empty. The door was still locked, the floor untouched. But near the edge of the village, where an old landslide had revealed a narrow stone fissure, villagers reported hearing a soft cry, not of fear, not of hunger, a calling. When they searched the crevice the next day, all they found was a small piece of cloth snagged on jagged rock, and the faint smell of damp earth. No tracks, no prints, no blood, just a presence. The monks left without another word. The mother never spoke again, and some now believe he wasn't taken. He returned. Was he one of them? Or the beginning of their return? There is a tomb in Guizhou province, older than the dynasties around it, sealed with iron bolts and surrounded by salt pits. Locals say it was built not to honor the dead, but to trap the pale ones alive, the race that lived beneath us. No offerings inside, just 7 symbols carved into the walls, each representing one direction: north, south, east, west, above, below, and the 7th with no translation. The monks who discovered it in 1812 reported hearing sounds from under the floor. Not rats, not wind. Rhythmic, slow, and dry, like teeth chattering against stone. The tomb was resealed the same day, and all records of its contents were moved to a private archive that burned 3 years later. In every version, the message was the same. It wasn't built to bury something. It was built to keep it still. Throughout Chinese folklore, creatures that ascend from the deep usually seek chaos or vengeance. But the Shanxiao are different. They don't roar. They don't hunt. They wait. They observe. They memorize our movements like predators who've seen the same mistake before. And the people who claim to have heard them don't talk about glowing eyes or claws. They talk about tapping, always tapping. Sometimes from under their homes, sometimes from beneath their beds, sometimes from behind their walls. That's what terrifies them. The land remembers them. The rivers still shift around their old paths. Forests stop growing over certain hills, as if the roots know better than to reach too far down. And sometimes, when the air is too still and the sky too quiet, the wind doesn't blow from above, it rises from below. A warm, fetid breeze carrying the taste of stone, mold, and breath. Maybe the Shanxiao didn't vanish. They were simply forgotten, buried beneath centuries of noise, concrete, and denial. Because the race beneath us never stopped living, never stopped learning, never stopped listening. And when one of them finally rises again, it won't be with fury. It will be with purpose, with the patience of a species that never gave up its place. You don't need to believe in them. You only need to hope they're not listening right now.